Here with us now, legal analyst and trial attorney Misty Marris. Misty, good morning, my friend. 7 years. Did that surprise you at all?
You know, it didn't, because that's the maximum that the judge could give under the sentencing guidelines. Remember, judges don't just come up with these numbers out of nowhere. There's guidelines and there's parameters. So he already was facing a 2-year mandatory sentence, which is what his team asked for, that be it, relating to the aggravated identity theft. The higher end was 7. And Hannah, reading the prosecution's sentencing memo, specifically going through what they call a social media blitz that he continued to do even after pleading guilty. And also, this is the big one to me, that he made a significant amount of money on Cameo and from a documentary, and not $1 went back to victims. And that, and some of those numbers were also not quite the same as what was reported to the probation department. To me, I thought the judge would probably err on the higher side.
Well, Santos did speak on social media. I want to read to our viewers what he said after the sentencing. I implore that President Trump give me a chance to prove I'm more than the mistakes I've made. Santos has said repeatedly he would ask the president for a pardon. What is the likelihood of that happening?
I think he's already making that overture on social media. So there's a process in place. You have to go to the pardon attorney, submit information, they analyze it, make a recommendation to the president. But that's one way. That's the formal process. The president has such broad power. He can pardon someone for any reason or no reason at all outside of all of that formality. So he doesn't have to go through that process. So I think you see the overture being made through social media and maybe through some connections. And we know that he's been Team Trump, really, throughout the election process. But we haven't seen the charges go away or prosecutors being directed to look for something less as of yet. A pardon's always on the table, though. As I said, president can pretty much do what he wants.
And we know our president loves social media, so I'm sure he's seeing that message. Absolutely. Let's turn to another case making headlines. I want to get your expertise here on Karen Read's second murder trial, which began this week. Now, just to remind our viewers, she's accused of striking her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, with an SUV, leaving him to die in the snow. She's charged with second-degree manslaughter. Her defense team is now arguing she's the victim of a police conspiracy and that another officer fatally beat O'Keefe. Her first trial ended in a hung jury. That happened last July. Misty actually talked to you about that. We're talking about it again. Jurors went to where O'Keefe's body was found. What do you think they're looking at and hoping to gain by visiting the site where he died?
Yeah, so Hannah, there's not always a site visit in a trial.
I've never heard of it, actually.
In this particular instance, the judge said, okay, you can go to the site. And the directive is to look at, to observe, right? You can't take notes, you can't take pictures. Observe the location, observe the distance from the door to the front yard, the lawn. Actually, the SUV was there too, for the purpose of understanding evidence that's to come in the trial. So it's to give the jury context. And both the defense and prosecution gave specific things for the jurors to look at. Defense said, pay attention to how far the driveway is from the front door. The lawn, it looks a little bigger in pictures. Look at the size of it here. And then the prosecutor said, look at that SUV. And really, this is for the purpose of prosecutors saying, are his injuries consistent with being hit by an SUV? Their argument is yes. Defense, their theory is, but he was killed inside and brought outside. So that distance, that could really make a difference. So it's to put context to evidence that the jury will see moving forward.
The doctor also shared with the jury what her blood alcohol level was on that fateful day, 0.93%.
Pretty high.
Pretty high. How damaging is that?
Well, remember the charges. So there's an intentional murder charge. That's the highest level charge. There's also vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. And that really speaks directly to that issue. The question is, could Karen Read really even know what happened that night? We know she's made other statements. Did I hit him? Did I hit him? I hit him. You know, there's a question mark about that. But her intoxication level is absolutely critical, especially to that component of the case, but also contend to refute her version of the facts. Did she really know what happened? And remember, she's spoken out a lot since her first trial.
She has not stayed quiet.
She has not stayed quiet. So there's a lot of stuff out there, documentaries, interviews. It's all going to come together, and a large part of it is going to be about her level of intoxication.
What are the chances that this trial, too, will end in a hung jury?
Look, Hannah, it is one of those things that you can't really tell till the end, but I definitely think it's possible. And listen, the defense in this case has plugged up some of the holes that they saw in trial one. We heard about it in opening statements. One critical issue, where was that body, right? Where was John O'Keefe killed? Now, defense is going to have an expert who's going to say he never experienced hypothermia. It's more likely that he was in a warm place and then ended up outside. That's a new piece of evidence that we did not see in trial one.
Right.
So there's some issues that are going to be different. And of course, Michael Proctor, that lead investigator, crude messages, fired now, so different position than before. The prosecution's going to have some issues when it comes to reasonable doubt.
I mean, this case has caught the country's attention for sure. We will be watching. Misty Marris, thank you so much, always, for your expertise.
Thank you.